Tipping. It's a simple concept, an act of goodwill, a token of appreciation, a way to say thanks for taking care of me. But what happens when something so straightforward spirals into something ugly, something pressured, even something dangerous? For decades, tipping has been a cultural cornerstone in many parts of the world, especially in the United States. We tip servers at restaurants, baristas at coffee shops, drivers in taxis, and even delivery people who bring our favorite meals right to our door. It's a way to acknowledge effort, to reward good service, or at least that's what it's supposed to be. But somewhere along the way, tipping stopped feeling like a choice. It's no longer a spontaneous act of generosity. Instead, it's a fraught, obligatory transaction that leaves many of us feeling resentful, judged, or just plain uncomfortable. And in one recent case, this tension exploded into something unthinkable, a horrifying act of violence over a $2 tip. Imagine this. It's an ordinary evening. You've ordered pizza for dinner, a $33 order. When the delivery driver arrives, you hand them a $2 tip. It's not much, but it's something, right? For most people, the interaction would end there. But not this time. Hours later, the delivery driver, identified as Briana Alvelo, returns. This time, she's masked. She's not alone either. An accomplice is with her, and they're armed. What happens next is the stuff of nightmares. They force their way into the customer's home, holding her boyfriend at gunpoint. Then, in a shocking act of rage, Alvelo stabs the victim 14 times. All of this happens in front of the victim's young child. If that wasn't horrifying enough, the victim is also pregnant. Yes, you read that right. Over a $2 tip, a pregnant woman was brutally attacked in her own home.
If you like this kind of content, don't forget to like my video and subscribe to my channel. This is really important for the YouTube algorithm, and I see that 70% of the people who watch my content are not subscribed yet. If you can reward me for my efforts with a click, it will motivate me to produce more quality content. Thanks in advance.
This incident isn't just about one delivery driver's unthinkable actions. It's a symptom of something much larger, much deeper, the toxic culture that tipping has become. What was once a kind gesture has transformed into an unspoken demand. Tips are no longer viewed as a bonus for excellent service. They're expected, and when those expectations aren't met, resentment bubbles to the surface. For customers, this creates financial and emotional stress. How much is enough? Will they think I'm cheap if I tip less? Is this going to affect my service next time? These questions linger in the back of our minds every time we calculate the bill. For service workers, the stakes are even higher. In many industries, tipping isn't just extra cash, it's the lifeline that makes up for low wages. When tips fall short, it feels personal, like a judgment on their worth. This unspoken pressure has created a breeding ground for frustration, entitlement, and, in rare but alarming cases like this one, violence. The real tragedy here isn't just the attack, it's the cultural shift that led us to this point. Gratitude has been replaced by obligation, and generosity has turned into expectation. Think about it. How often have you felt required to tip, even in situations where the service was mediocre or subpar? How many times have you hit custom tip on a payment screen, sweating over the percentage while the server stares at you? This isn't how tipping is supposed to work. Tips were meant to be a reward for exceptional service, not a mandatory fee tacked onto the bill. And yet, here we are. The pressure is everywhere. At coffee shops, the card reader asks if you'd like to tip before you've even tasted your latte. In ride shares, you're prompted to tip before the car door has even closed behind you. The expectation has crept into nearly every corner of our daily lives. This relentless pressure doesn't just affect our wallets, it wears us down emotionally. The constant worry about tipping enough can make even simple transactions feel stressful. For service workers, the consequences are even more severe. In an industry where wages are often low and inconsistent, tips can mean the difference between making rent and falling short. This imbalance has created a toxic environment where resentment festers on both sides. Customers feel trapped by expectations, while workers feel undervalued and underpaid. And in extreme cases, like the attack on this pregnant woman, the fallout is catastrophic. So what can we do? How do we fix a culture that's become so broken? First, we need to address the root of the problem: fair wages. Service workers shouldn't have to rely on tips to make ends meet. Employers need to step up and pay their staff livable wages so that tips can return to being what they were meant to be, a bonus, not a necessity. Second, we need to redefine the social contract around tipping. Customers shouldn't feel pressured to tip out of obligation, and workers shouldn't feel entitled to tips as a replacement for fair pay. Finally, we need to have an honest conversation about the tipping culture as a whole. How do we strike a balance that's fair for everyone involved? This story isn't just about a $2 tip. It's about a system that's failing everyone it touches: customers, workers, and society at large. Tipping should be an act of kindness, not a source of stress. It should bring people closer, not push them apart. But until we address the larger issues at play, incidents like this one will continue to haunt us. The question is, what are we willing to risk to make things right? Would you risk everything over $2? It's a shocking question, but incidents like this force us to think deeply about the pressures in our society. I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think tipping culture has gone too far? Share your opinions in the comments below. The more we talk about these issues, the closer we get to finding real solutions.